If you saw my last video, you noticed that I had a little bit of trouble with the point cloud displaying it in 3D mode in QGIS, partly because the point cloud was large and partly because it was just difficult to navigate that point cloud. I'm going to show you how I figured out how to navigate that today. So I spent a lot of time after that going through and trying to figure out the best methods for doing point clouds in 3D mode in QGIS because you can make some cool visualizations, and I want to show you some of that today. So I'm going to drag this output.laz file in. It's just a regular Lidar point cloud. And if you watched that previous video about how to download those with PDAL for the US, you can download them really easily there. Now, let's go ahead and let's go to View and 3D Map Views and a new 3D Map View. We're going to get this here, and I'm gonna drag this over to my other screen and make it big and bring it back over so I don't have any docking issues. Give me just a sec here. Okay, here we go. Bring that right over there. So here's my 3D map view. Now what I can do is if I click this zoom full, it should bring that lighter point cloud right in there, just like that. Okay. Now, if you remember yesterday, I had some issues where if I click the mouse wheel and drag, it rotates that underneath, and it's really slow to pan it back across. And so it's just kind of difficult to navigate this. But I found one thing in particular that makes it easier to navigate these point clouds and get the view you want, and then a couple other things to help with display and getting the visual you want. Okay, so if we kind of drag this here, now I'm going to show you what I mean. Because we kind of flat view, want to zoom in on that. And I get to here, and we can pan it still. Zooming in and out is going to get increasingly difficult as we get closer and closer. And now we're having a hard time with it. It's zooming very slowly. Okay, so we can't get any closer. Now, if you come to this, the way you can adjust this is if you go into the settings here, the options, and you come into configure. It's going to bring up this screen. And the thing you want to adjust here is this field of view. And so what this field of view is, it's the angle that you're viewing from. So if I have 45 degrees, it means I'm viewing a 45 degree field of view. I can narrow that field of view. So like 45 degrees, I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to slide this out of the way. You know, it'd be something like a field of view like this, right? If I know that 15 degrees, it's going to give me a much narrower field of view. There's going to be more room to play with it and it'll let me get closer in on objects. So that's the first tip here, is to adjust this. And I'm going to just take this down to 15 and I'm going to say okay. Now it's zoomed me in really close. Hopefully we can zoom out. Maybe we can't zoom out very fast. We can go zoom full again. Let's just go zoom full. And now let's try to get back in to that same location that I was looking at. So if we come here and we rotate down here. The other tip I'll tell you while I'm doing this is to use smaller point clouds. If you have a really large point cloud, you're going to have issues. So these are for visualizations. You might want to subset your point cloud to a smaller area that you want to show your visualization and if you want to get zoomed in close. So you can see now that I'm zoomed in here that I have it, my field of view set to 15 degrees. Now I can zoom in much closer and still get, and still be able to manipulate the scene. Okay, so much easier to do with that. I can get right down to ground level almost. Then rotate up a little, or rotate down, zoom in, and then we'll rotate up. And now you're starting to see some of those trees there. You can see the ground classification and everything else. Okay, so those are the first two tips. One is use a smaller point cloud so that your visualizations can be seen better. Two, or so your visualizations don't take up so much memory and computer resources. Two is to just narrow that field of view, and it makes it so much easier to get in close. Now, we're not going to go through everything today, but the next thing, the third tip that I think is super helpful is to adjust some of the 3D view settings. So let's go ahead and change our attribution here. We're going to attribute by ramp. And let's change, oh, where'd my 3D view go? Oh, it's still there. There it is. And so now we have this ramp. I like to, that was kind of cool, but I think I'm going to reverse this. Maybe I won't. Anyway, let's try to invert this. Invert the color ramp. And we can bring that view back up. There. So you get that. That's the intensity of the returns, which is really cool. I'm going to change this actually to the number of returns. And then we're going to get a graphic that looks similar to what I displayed on the thumbnail for this video. And we'll pull that up just like that. So you can see you get a number of returns. Looks like a pretty cool scene. Now what I want to do is I want to adjust these 3D settings over here. So if I go back to layer styling and I click on this 3D button here, we can just follow 2D symbology, which is great. That's just fine. But if I come to point size down here, I can knock this down to 1, and it's just going to make those points a little easier to differentiate between individual points. So you can see here now that we have that showing up where you can make out those trees just a little better. You can make out some details a little better. Now, the next thing that we want to do is with our point budget. We can either decrease to make this more sparse, and I'll show you what that looks like. So if we take this, say it's 5 million down to 1 million, you will see what this looks like. And you can see that that point cloud is now kind of sparse. It doesn't look nearly as good. We could also go from 5 million up to 10 million. And if we go to 10 million and we pull that up, you can see that this is starting to look even a little more realistic than it was before. This is going to depend a lot what you want to do on the size of your point cloud. The larger your point cloud, if you add more points, it might get really, really hard to handle that as far as visualization goes in QGIS. But you can always give it a try. But if you go too low with a large point cloud, then you're not going to see any detail. So there are some tips that you can use to get there. Now, one thing I haven't tried yet that we're going to try here, because, hey, if we're not breaking stuff, we're not learning. Let's go ahead and try to render this as a surface and see what that looks like. So I'm going to click Render as a Surface. I'm going to pull that 3D view back up. Oh, and that looks kind of cool. This is probably something you want to maybe do more with like ground points than you want to do with trees. But you know what we can do? Let's go ahead and give this a try. So I haven't scripted or tested any of this that I'm doing right now. I had those 3 tips for you, but now I want to test this out and I want to show you just real time what it might look like. This is going to take a minute to render. So I'm going to pause this while it finishes rendering. I'll show you the finished rendered result. And then we're going to come back. We're going to filter this point cloud to just ground points, and we're going to see what the terrain looks like. So this is taking a really long time to render. So I'm just going to turn it off and hope I don't crash QGIS. I think it's going to crash it. We'll see what happens if I click. Let's see. Let's just turn that off. Okay, we got it turned off. Hopefully we're not going to crash anything here. Now let's go into our layers and we can filter this. If we right click on it and we go to filter, we can set the classification is equal to 2, and we can say which are ground points there. So we can say okay. And now we should get back a smaller point cloud. And now let's just check our 3D view and see what it looks like to make sure that it changed. Okay, you can see how that everything's flat now. We just have the terrain, which is what we wanted. Even though we have multiple returns at those points, these are classified as ground points. And now let's try to render this as a surface, and let's see what this looks like. It's still, once again, going to take a little bit of time to do this, but it's going much faster. So I'll pause the video again, and then you can come back and see if this works. Like I said, I'm just testing this out. I haven't tried this before, but we'll see what it looks like. So the rendering's done. It doesn't look real great. I wonder if we can just change this a little bit, the symbology to something else, and see if that improves. So let's just change this back to intensity maybe. And now let's pull this back up. Okay, that looks a lot better. So you can see that surface now doesn't look a whole lot different, but it is somewhat different. And we're still loading a little bit here. There's areas of no data maybe where you get that intensity. But yeah, kind of cool ways to visualize LiDAR data. And like I said, I hope this has helped you if you had troubles getting these 3D visualizations that I keep showing. I hope that this has helped you find some of those things that may be causing you issues, and can make it so you can make some really cool visualizations and maps to showcase analysis that you've done. Stick around. I think we're going to have some more on LiDAR. I'm hoping to do some stuff with Python and PDAL or Poodle, so that you can see how to analyze these data and make some good results and some cool visualizations. Thanks for watching.